Welcome, Anthony, to the stage. Welcome to DPW. Great to have you here today. And let's dive right into it, right? We're going to have a discussion about the Procurement Garage, how it came about. But let's first start with where it's coming from, right? Maybe we can do a short introduction about yourself. You're the Global VP for the Procurement Business Process and Technology at Johnson & Johnson. And maybe you can share your role with the audience and also like the key goals of your procurement organization.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter Paul, and it's just great to be here. As Peter said, I'm Anthony. I have responsibility for shaping and driving our overall digital procurement strategy at Johnson & Johnson and advancing critical capabilities when it comes to data sciences, advanced analytics, supplier excellence, category excellence, as well as organizational agility. My team, members of my team that are actually here, they're responsible for really shaping and governing our end-to-end procurement processes across the J&J enterprise. And I've been at J&J for about 11 years now, but my career has always been in digital. So I've held CIO positions for J&J. I headed our medical medtech organization in Canada, as well as our consumer business in Canada. So very, very jazzed about talking about the Procurement Garage in this forum.
Great. And as you know, I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask you, but also to the audience, I want to say there's the tool called Slido. It allows you to also ask questions. That's why I have the iPad here. I can see your questions coming in during the conversation. I will certainly make time for them at the end of the conversations to also answer your questions that you may have for Anthony about the Procurement Garage. But let's first go into sort of the history of the Procurement Garage, right? Procurement's in a lot of change already. What led to the establishment of the Procurement Garage? Can you share a bit about that?
No, excellent. So like many organizations, procurement was very decentralized in Johnson & Johnson. So we had hundreds of legal entities, we had business units with different processes for contracting, for sourcing, for payment, and then over several years, our first job was to really centralize and design a procurement organization and started introducing very standard processes from how we source, how we contract, how we manage relationships, how we pay our suppliers. So that was the first part of our journey. And then we started introducing technology to actually simplify all those experiences. So we did that, and it was, we were successful at doing it. But we knew that was just table stakes to be able to create value. And recently, just about 18 months ago, we actually launched a new strategy for procurement, which is all about partnership for growth and good. Growth meaning creating value for organizations, and good, I'm actually very happy to see a lot of discussions around good. Good is all about sustainability, all about diversity, managing risk, creating that better world for us all to live in. So, and we knew that to be able to live into that strategy, because it's a very, very bold strategy where every year we now intend to create $1 billion worth of innovation, right, with partnership for our suppliers. We're now going to be spending, $4 billion with, diverse, suppliers. So very, very bold strategies. We knew that we can't just be working and operating the way we typically will do, because it'll be very, very hard to achieve those objectives. So the Procurement Garage was born mainly for us to be more nimble, to be more agile, so we can live into those principles and achieve our strategic imperatives.
Wow, that's amazing. Those are some big and bold objectives that you have there. And then you agreed together, like we want to build something like a procurement garage, right? To be more nimble, to have those faster processes. But how did you manage to implement that in your organization?
That's a good question. So Johnson & Johnson, we are a large company. We are $95 billion approximately in revenue last year, 140,000 people working for us, and it's a large, complex organization. So to be able to do this, we're actually inspired by ex-CEO who said, for us to be able to be relevant to and continue to deliver, great products and services to our patients that we serve, we have to start acting and thinking like startup companies. So otherwise, we've seen big companies like BlackBerry, Kodak, Blockbuster, that at one point they were untouchable, but now they're actually no longer in existence. So we definitely don't want to be one of those companies. So he actually empowered us to think and act like a startup. And through the Procurement Garage is actually one of the ways that we are manifesting that in J&J Procurement. And let me actually break that down a little bit, because I know a good way that I've been using to explain the analogy of Procurement Garage is you have a garage, and then you have a parking lot. If you take your car to the garage, they check the brakes, they check the oil, they service it, they tune it. Your car will come out most of the time in a better form, right? But if you leave your car, parked in a parking lot for 30, 60, 90 days, you'll probably come back and see your car, probably the tires are deflated, it's got dust on it. So Procurement Garage for us is where you take ideas, you take sticky business problems, you take it in there, and within 90 to 100 days, you have to come up with an outcome, right? So we purposely defined it within 90 or 100 days. The reason being, if you ask a group of people to go solve a problem and give them a year to solve it, guess how long it's going to take to solve? A year. But if you give people 90 days to solve a problem, knowing that you cannot be contracting for 70 days because you have 90 days to solve the problem. You have to actually reimagine how you will contract. You have to reimagine how you'll be working. You have to create a different type of dynamic, a different type of environment. So that's why we actually defined that framework and said, within 90 to 100 days, you actually have to have an outcome. And I can tell you, it was actually challenging both for the suppliers that we were working with and for internal folks as well. But that has actually been one of the key tenets of the Procurement Garage, and so far been yielding some very, very exciting results.
Okay, that's a great leeway into the next question, right? Can you tell us about those first results? Because it's now in operation for about a year. What are some of the first results that you're seeing from this new approach, the new way of working?
Yeah. So firstly, I want to thank yourself, Unlimited, and Matthias and ScoutLab for really partnering with us to really shape and drive the framework. And also just a call out to one of my favorite futurists who was actually on stage earlier. I'm not sure, maybe she's here, Eloise Epstein. She was actually one of the folks that really pushed us to think differently in coming up with the Procurement Garage. So since we got here, my team and I, and members of actually J&J, we were fortunate enough to meet with 3 of the founders that we actually have in the Procurement Garage now. We met with Mark from Visible for supplier performance management. We met with Kilva for autonomous sourcing and optimization, and Seturo for category strategy development. And tech category strategy development, this is an area whereby, to be honest, I don't think it's been digitized since the start of procurement. Category leaders, when they want to create their strategies, get a lot of reports, they interview a lot of people, and then it's largely a manual process. So I was super excited to really see the capabilities of these platforms in applying AI and simplifying that whole category strategy development process. And I've been very, very excited just to see just the number of startup companies, and the investment that's really, really, going into this space. So from a results standpoint, very pleased with what's coming up. But I think what's even more important for us as a company is the culture that it's creating, right, within J&J. So now we know that if we have a sticky problem, we don't have to let it swell and take forever for someone to sponsor it. We know that we can get things done in a very iterative manner. We can be more outcome focused. So that whole excitement, it's really created a lot of excitement for us in procurement. And funny enough, our legal partners are super excited. Our IT partners are excited. Actually, one of our IT partners accompanied us on this trip. He's super excited. Our global services organization, just because, it's different. And it's also been a way to attract talent. People come into J&J during the interview process, and they're asking us, oh, would we get to work in your garage? Because it's innovative. Everybody wants to work creatively. People don't want to spend their time just doing, mundane tasks or manual tasks. So it's got a lot of unintended positive consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that a lot in the market, right? And earlier today, I saw a great presentation here by McKinsey, also explaining like the need for new talents, right, in the procurement organizations. And if you keep doing what you were doing, you will keep getting the talents that you were getting talents for, right? Absolutely. And I think like this new way of working, it's so attractive to the next generation. We also have them here with the next 100 cohort, the class of 22. They're in the room probably. Where are you? I see one, two. So the class of 22, they're in the room as well. And this is the new talent that will be attracted by these kind of programs for sure. Tell us some more, Anthony. So this is now. What's in stock for the future, for the garage? Like, what are your plans going forward?
Yeah. So for me, the vision for the garage is I'd love to embed these fundamental principles across the rest of the function. So I don't want it just to be limited in the garage and say, oh, it's only in the garage that we work in an agile way, we work value in phases. I want every process within procurement, and when I talk every process, the way we onboard suppliers, the way we partner with them, the way we collaborate with them, the way we pay them. I want us all to be thinking in that agile manner, because that helps us accelerate bringing innovation into the company. So that's, for me, the vision is, ideally, if everything works out well, we should scrap the garage in 2-3 years, because everybody, the whole function, right, they're operating with principles of the procurement garage. So that's what I see for the vision of the garage.
Great, that sounds amazing. And I think it's the great ambition to have, right? And to get the rest of the organization in the same mindset and energized. Super cool. Final question about like that whole process where the procurement garage is fitting into your overall strategy. Like, what's the broader vision into the future, right? For the procurement function within J&J, where do you see that heading?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think this is, and I know a few speakers, they've mentioned this. For me, there is no better time to be in procurement than now. I mean, think about it. I think the events of the past 2 to 3 years have really elevated the importance of this function across organizations. So procurement is no longer being viewed as, when you want to cut costs, or when you want to rubber stamp, or when you want to, just to sign that contract. We get called, we're on the table when we're talking about how do we manage inflation, how do we manage risk, how do we drive sustainability, how do we ensure resiliency of a supply chain, how do we increase diversity. So all these aspects are now fabric, of the procurement organization. And I think for Johnson & Johnson, we've always viewed it, but even now in an elevated manner, Johnson & Johnson, we view procurement as, it's almost the gateway to innovation for the company. Because you have all these amazing startups, you have thousands and thousands of suppliers in there. We have our patients, our customers that are waiting. Our job is now just to be the gateway, to harness that and be able to accelerate that creation, of value, for the enterprise. So, I'm just super excited to be in this role in procurement. And just to let folks know, I'm not a procurement practitioner. I am now, but I actually got into procurement 3 years ago because I was complaining about procurement systems and policies and processes. And my boss at that point said, dude, I'm just tired of you nagging and complaining. Go
fix it.
and go and fix the problem. And but I can say I've just had tremendous appreciation of the kind of impact this function can have, on the balance sheet and in the broader
and the future value of the company, right? Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a very different topic to discuss, right? But in close collaboration with or context with this new way of working, we had a very nice discussion earlier about diversity, right? And the importance of diversity in the workforce. I think diversity is also super crucial to get these new ways of working and the new ways of thinking, the diverse mindsets into the organization. Can you talk a bit about how you view that at Johnson & Johnson and how that's important to your organization?
No, absolutely, and actually that's a point that hasn't been discussed at large at this conference, so I'm glad that you brought it up. Personally, and this is a subject I'm personally passionate about, and I know my company is passionate about as well. Simple, for a couple of reasons. I think I think procurement has a great role to play in here, in really ensuring that internally we're creating an environment where everybody feels that sense of belonging, where they can come regardless of what they look like, where they're from, what their sexual orientation is. And J&J, we've actually taken this a step further. We've been very declarative as to the things that we want to change internally to really help, enhance our D&I posture, and externally as well. Externally, we've made a commitment that over the next couple of years, we are going to spend, we spend over, $35 billion procuring goods and services. Over $4 billion worth of that needs to be spent on minority-owned businesses, women-owned, veteran-owned, companies with diverse abilities, Black-owned. And for me, that really aligns with my own personal values. So being able to be working on programs whereby we're embedding this diversity into how people procure, it just gives me that additional spring in my step. And internally as well, actually, I chair for North America the DE&I Council for J&J, and my mission, my goal. We have different objectives within each of the regions. Is really just to make sure that as procurement, I think we have that responsibility in creating that environment through either enabling our suppliers or even within how we work to making sure that we're bringing in people that look differently, ethnically diverse, racially diverse, gender diversity, as well as sexual orientation, etc. Because it's by that diversity that you can challenge one another and push the solutions a little bit further. Because if you think about it, if everybody looked like me, the same, it's very hard to push each other because you all had very similar experiences. But when you combine people from different experiences, how they grew up, and introduce that into the solution creation process, I think the value is limitless that you can create.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I thought that was a very important point, indeed, that we didn't hear enough about yet at the conference. So thanks for bringing that out so clearly. I see we're already towards the end of our time together. Maybe one last question from the audience, because otherwise they would be in the Slido for nothing. I pick one. There's a question about the onboarding process, right? So the onboarding, the negotiation, the contracting processes. Did you make any changes to them to allow for the procurement garage way of working?
Yes, actually yes, because if you think about it, that process typically takes months. And we flipped it on its head, and it took us a week to engage and sign a contract. Simply, we just said, we defined very simple terms and conditions, and we attached a PO to it, as opposed to giving startups indemnity clauses of millions of dollars that they will never sign and will waste time negotiating. And funny enough, as I said, really, I give a shout out to our legal team, who I know are probably watching right now, that they leaned into the process, because if you don't change, if you don't innovate, we probably won't be in existence. So I give them a lot of credit for helping us change that process around onboarding and contracting as well.
Thank you so much, Anthony. There's tons of other questions that the audience was asking you that I would love to ask you, but we'll be around. Come find Anthony at the event, and we'll be around now also for the great pitches of the demo finals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.